We're back live here at Viewpoint, WLCN 96.3, 648-5510, 648-5510. In case anybody has any questions they'd like to ask of local author C. Michael Bennis, a Lincoln boy who's kind of made us all proud here. There's a saying that Groucho Marx said that a long time ago. Practically everybody in New York has a half a mind to write a book, and they do.
Oh, gosh.
There are also many, many books that are left in the trunk after someone exits stage left.
Oh, dear.
And many of them.
Judy had some questions she wanted to ask you, Michael.
Well, the way you were talking, Michael, it sounds like this was not your first book.
No, it wasn't. I was living in Spain, and I wrote 2 novels. My wife, unfortunately, needed a breast biopsy, and she said, give me those books. And this is my first wife, and she was very, very attractive, very gutsy, a wonderful woman. And she went and she got her breast biopsy in the morning, and to tell you how gutsy she is. And in the afternoon, she walked into St. Martin's. Right after that, went up and said, I want to talk to your best editor. And they actually put her in with the editor, whose name I won't say. And she sat down and said, we're living in Madrid. These are my husband's books. They're good. And I want you guys to consider them. And then she went over to Harcourt and did the same thing. And there were 2 novels. The first one I had written, called The Signs of Destiny, went through 7 readings at St. Martin's. And then the Dirty Rotten Scoundrels rejected it 4 days before Christmas. They could have waited till the new year.
Could have waited till New Year.
Yeah. The other one, Harcourt, sent me a rejection letter, but they said they loved it. So I talked to the senior editor.
Wait a minute now. We're kind of into
that's like your girlfriend kissing you goodbye and saying, this is no more.
Yeah, this is right, but I still love you. Yeah. So anyway, I was given by their senior editor a clue on how I ought to rewrite it, and I did that. And I rewrote it, and I bloody well ruined it. And a friend of mine who's a good Spanish artist said, when the painting's done, it's done. You know, you don't touch it. Well, unfortunately, in writing, you have to. And rewriting is the untold thing that no one wants to admit, but you rewrite and rewrite and rewrite.
That has to be an art.
It just goes on and on. But I ruined it, and then my son got ill, and I went to we went to Boston, and after Boston and New York, and I realized it was time to make a gainful living. This was not going to be supporting any lifestyle at all, writing these fiction works, and so I let it go. It sat there for a long, long time, and then when I left the toy business and I became a consultant, I had some extra time, and I started writing, and then when I retired, I did it full-time, and oddly enough, it wasn't the first 2 books, but a book that I wrote from scratch, Rules of Engagement, that was published. And the reason I self-published it, I got an offer from a publisher to publish it. It's a place called Publish America, which has, and this is why I'm using their name, a sort of a not terribly good reputation. What they do is they publish your book for free. Okay, that's great. You got a free book. Where they make their money is on the back end. You have to pay for every book that goes out the door. And they charge a lot. So I started looking into this, and I heard about Amazon, and that was the way I went. It made a lot of sense. But the first book I wrote, the one that went through St. Martin's, all those readings, that'll come out next spring. And that will have been rewritten, I don't know how many times.
You know, I've never written a book, but I used to sew a lot. Is it kind of like that? You know, the first time around, it's fun, it's exciting, it's good, something's taking form, something you've made yourself. And then when you have to tear it out,
oh, it's painful.
It's just painful, and it takes all the fun out of it and all the steam out of you. Is that a good analogy or not?
Yeah, it really is. Well, first of all, writing. We're presuming that you write something you know about and you really like. It's a really heady experience. You are with people of your own making. You are in situations of your control. You're setting this up. It's escapism at its finest.
You get to be king, don't you?
Oh, well, you get to do everything. Well, however, the first novel I wrote, when I was rewriting it this year, the heroine, I had this, it was a perfect love story. They were made for each other, and you go through the book, and there was a lot of tension. She had gone to a fortune teller when she was 17 and told that she would die at 24, a horrible death, but just before she died, she would experience the love of her life. All right, this guy is the love of her life. This is perfect. Everything's going along. And suddenly she jumps in bed with another man. I literally could not write. I couldn't do anything. For 2 weeks, I was morose. I was jealous. I was upset.
Did
How
she
the heck dare
surprise
her?
you?
What?
Did she surprise you?
She got control. I lost control, and that made the book.
Oh my gosh.
In other words, she became real. This lovey, huffy, puffy thing that I'd created suddenly became a big girl with her own ideas and her own mind, and that made the book.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, you get in this environment, and it's really heady. It's exciting. My wife's favorite thing is we're out to dinner. Would you stop writing? Because you can't shut it off.
It's interesting.
You get their dilemmas.
You've got this thing going through, going around there, and you're out in maybe just a dinner with Helen.
Oh,
but in the meantime, you got this idea that's germinated back there, and you're kind of working from that point on.
For all the women out there, I'll tell you, if you have to pick a significant other, don't pick a writer. I mean, we're terrible. I mean, it really is. We're normal people, but when you get involved in this, you can't shut it off. Hence why my wife sent me to Portugal.
Mine had sent me
if you're going to be banished, that's not a bad place to be banished.
No, was it? Well, it was fabulous. It was too good to be true. I kept thinking there was something else going on.
Now, were all your books romance novels? Is that your genre of choice?
The first one had a little bit to do with the occult, with the woman having the fortune teller tell her that she would die a horrible death at 24. The second book was a thriller, an adventure set in Spain, where a Basque terrorist tries to kidnap a U.S. senator, and he kidnaps the wrong men. And it turns out that the guy he kidnapped is a genius with a superpower weapon. And so everything would be great if the terrorist and the guy he kidnapped disappeared forever. And so
you have to make these things happen.
Yes, so you have to have somebody who's going to go and try to rescue him before they end the kidnapper and the guy he's stolen in gunfire. That was it. And then the last book that I've written that is in the process of being rewritten for the third time is called Dangerous and Desirable, and it's about a...
That's Judy.
That's Judy? Well, I'll bet it is.
That was a good one, Bill.
Yes, it was.
I'll ask you what Mike was asked. What were you drinking?
Yes. Well, anyway, what happens, there's a man that had a love affair of a lifetime living in Madrid. And his girlfriend was Mexican. And one day she left him because he was no longer dangerous and desirable. And so he goes back to New York. He starts an international trade business, but he really isn't what he seems. Even in Madrid, he was a hitman. And but the poor Mexican girlfriend never caught on to any of this stuff. And so he gets news that she is down there with this drug chieftain, narco-traficante in Mexico, who's quite a character. Anyway, she gets upset and beats the living heck out of him when he's not suspecting it, and so she finds herself in jail facing the gallows he's going to hang her on, and she sends help for this guy to come and get her.
Well, there's an imagination flowing for you.
Well, I guess. I can see why you can't pay attention to someone else. My gosh, your head is so full.
It is.
Are you thinking, when I see you on the treadmill in the mornings out the gym when you come back, Mike's very good, comes back here once a month here, and Do you have these ideas floating around between the
No,
up there?
when I'm on the treadmill, actually, I feel really great to be in Lincoln. It's my hometown, and I'm watching CMT.
Oh,
and
okay.
that does it. The music gets me going faster and running, and that does it. And, but nevertheless, whenever your mind is occupied in one place, that's when your creative thing starts working too. So yeah, you end up doing things float in and out. And
Before we close here, I'd like to ask a question about your groups, your professional writers
Yeah.
associations down there in Tucson. That's a great spot, by the way. What would their age groups range from to, Mike?
We have
and
some-
genders. How would that mix?
we have maybe 5, 6 younger people, maybe 10. By
Younger
and
in
large,
their 40s? Or?
maybe I think we have one 20-year-old.
Oh.
We have some 30, maybe a couple of 40s. But by and large, the great majority of them are obviously they're women, and because women buy romance novels. And anyway, I am guessing that they are definitely beyond retirement age. That's to put it politically correct.
Well, we've appreciated the presence of C. Michael Bennis, author, Lincoln born, author of Rules of Engagement. Where could you find that book in Lincoln, Illinois, Michael?
At Prairie Years. There are plenty of them at Prairie Years. A bunch of them already signed, and they'll keep restocking them. And other than that, they're available on Amazon.com. You do the book search by under the search bar, hit books, and then write C. Michael Bennis, and it'll take you right to it.
There's a nice website, by the way. I printed that out. You have an interesting website, and it kind of makes me feel real good to have the son of one of my old teachers be so prominent and done so well. We appreciate your presence, Mike. We thank you for your time. I always try to close the Viewpoint with a quotation or two that's germane to the subject matter. And I find one from old John Dos Passos. You remember John, don't you, Judy?
Oh, yes.
I
He
thought
lived
you
next
did.
door to my
A friend
aunt.
of yours, right. And John said, if there's a special hell for writers, it would be, I got to read my own writing. It would be, if there's a special hell for writers, it would be the forced contemplation of their own work. Thank you very much, Mike Bennis, for being with us this morning.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you very much.
As